She was just supposed to be a temporary assistant. 3 months, then gone. But when his 8-year-old daughter refused to speak to anyone after her mother's death, everything changed. One afternoon, a little girl appeared in his office, tears streaming down her face, and Ruby knelt beside her with nothing but origami paper and a gentle voice. For the first time in 6 months, Ella spoke, and the billionaire CEO, who never smiled, realized he was watching the two people he'd come to love most in the world, even though loving them could cost him everything. This is the story of a woman who believed she was temporary, a man who'd forgotten how to feel, and the child who reminded them both what it means to choose love over fear. Before we begin, please take a second to like this video and subscribe. It really supports the channel and lets me know you want more mafia romances. I folded my third load of laundry at 6:47 a.m., the fabric still warm against my fingers, and calculated whether I could afford both electricity and groceries this month. The answer, like it had been for the past 8 months, was no. Not both. Never both. My studio apartment in Seattle's Belltown district had water stains on the ceiling that looked like continents I'd never visit, and a radiator that clanged like it was angry about having to work. I'd moved here after my parents died, Mom first, then Dad 6 months later, like his heart just gave up without her, and I'd learned quickly that grief and rent don't negotiate. I smoothed down the collar of my only good blouse, navy blue with a small coffee stain near the hem that I'd gotten good at hiding. The temp agency had called yesterday about a 3-month administrative position at Hale Industries. The pay was almost obscene, enough to catch up on everything, enough to breathe. I didn't let myself hope. Hope was expensive. The bus ride downtown took 40 minutes. I watched the city transform through the window, my neighborhood's cracked sidewalks giving way to polished steel and pristine glass, buildings that seemed to scrape the low-hanging clouds. Hale Industries occupied one of the tallest towers, all sharp angles and tinted windows that reflected the sky back at itself. I'd researched Daniel Hale last night on my phone, the screen cracked across one corner. Forbes called him the Iceman of Silicon Valley. Every photo showed the same thing. A man in his mid-30s with dark hair going silver at the temples, jaw sharp enough to cut, eyes that looked through people rather than at them. In one article, a former employee said, "Working for Daniel Hale is like working for a very expensive, very efficient robot." I didn't need warmth. I needed a paycheck. The lobby was all marble and minimalism, the kind of space that made you hyper-aware of every sound your shoes made. I signed in at security, got a visitor badge that felt heavier than it should, and took the elevator to the 44th floor. My reflection in the polished doors looked small, temporary. "Ms. James?" A woman in her 50s with perfect posture and a tablet approached. "I'm Margaret, Mr. Hale's executive assistant. Follow me, please." Her heels clicked with military precision down a hallway lined with abstract art that probably cost more than my entire year's salary. Everything smelled like leather and something expensive I couldn't name. The air conditioning was Arctic. We stopped outside a glass-walled office at the corner of the building. Through it, I could see him. Daniel Hale stood with his back to us, hands in his pockets, staring out at Seattle like he owned it. Maybe he did. The suit was charcoal gray, perfectly tailored, and even from behind he radiated the kind of authority that made my spine straighten involuntarily. "She's expecting you," Margaret said, knocking once before opening the door. He turned. I'd prepared myself for intimidating. I hadn't prepared for the way his presence filled the room like cold water, or how his eyes, gray, sharp, assessing, landed on me with the weight of a judgment already half formed. He didn't smile, didn't offer his hand. "Ms. James." His voice was exactly what I expected, controlled, precise, with edges that could draw blood. "Sit." I sat in the leather chair across from his desk, my hands folded in my lap to keep them from fidgeting. He remained standing, which felt intentional, a power play. Your resume is impressive for someone who's been working temporary positions for the past 2 years. He didn't phrase it as a question, but the implication hung there. Why? I needed flexibility, I said, keeping my voice steady. After my parents passed away, I had affairs to settle. Temporary work allowed me to manage that while staying employed. Something flickered across his face, too quick to read. The position is 3 months, administrative support, scheduling, correspondence. Margaret handles my calendar. You'd handle everything else. The hours are long, the expectations are high. I don't accept excuses or mediocrity. I don't offer either. His eyebrow lifted a fraction, the closest thing to surprise I'd probably ever see from him. Why do you want this position, Ms. James? The honest answer, because I'm drowning and this is a life raft, wasn't the one he wanted. I met his gaze, straightened my shoulders. Because I'm good at what I do, because I show up, I work hard, and I don't need hand-holding. You need someone reliable who won't waste your time. That's exactly what I am. The silence stretched between us like a test. Outside the window, a bird flew past, just a flash of wings against all that glass and steel. You start Monday, 7 a.m. sharp. Margaret will handle the paperwork. He turned back to the window, dismissing me without another word. I stood, my legs steadier than I expected. Thank you, Mr. Hale. Don't thank me yet. I was halfway to the door when his voice stopped me. Miss James. I turned. He was still facing the window, his reflection ghostly in the glass. The coffee stain. Next time use cold water and white vinegar, more effective than whatever you've been trying. Heat flooded my cheeks. He'd noticed. Of course he'd noticed. I'll remember that, I managed. I didn't let myself run until I reached the elevator. Even then, I just pressed the button and waited, my heart hammering against my ribs like it was trying to escape. The doors closed on my reflection, small, temporary, hired. I didn't know yet that everything was about to change. I didn't know that 3 weeks from now I'd meet an 8-year-old girl with her father's eyes and a silence that would break my heart. I didn't know that the man who never smiled was about to become the center of my entire world. 3 weeks into the job, I'd learned Daniel Hale's patterns like they were weather systems I needed to survive. He arrived at 6:45 a.m. precisely, drank his coffee black, no sugar, in a ceramic mug he never let anyone else touch. He took calls while standing, pacing like a caged thing. He said thank you exactly twice a day, once to Margaret, once to whoever brought lunch. He never ate it at his desk. He went to the small conference room, closed the door, and I'd see him through the glass walls just sitting there, staring at nothing, his food untouched. On bad days, he didn't eat at all. I learned not to ask questions, not to offer help he didn't request, not to exist too loudly in his presence. It was a Tuesday afternoon, gray Seattle rain streaking the windows, when everything changed. I was at my desk outside his office, organizing expense reports when the elevator chimed. I glanced up out of habit. A little girl stood there, 8, maybe 9 years old, dark hair in 2 braids that were coming loose, wearing a school uniform, navy jumper, white shirt, one knee sock higher than the other. She had a backpack covered in star stickers that was almost as big as she was. And she was crying. Not loud, messy crying, the silent kind that's somehow worse, shoulders shaking, tears streaming down her face, her whole body vibrating with the effort of keeping it quiet. Margaret was in a meeting, the receptionist was on a call, everyone else was buried in their cubicles, headphones on, oblivious. I stood up slowly, the way you approach a frightened animal. "Hey," I said softly, "are you okay?" She looked at me with eyes that were gray and huge and drowning. She didn't answer, just stood there frozen, like she'd been holding herself together for so long she'd forgotten how to move. I glanced at Daniel's office, door closed, on a call judging by his pacing silhouette. I crouched down to her level, my knees protesting against the floor. "My name's Ruby. What's yours?" Nothing, just those eyes, watching me like I was a puzzle she couldn't solve. I kept my voice low, gentle. "You don't have to talk if you don't want to, but you look like you could use a friend right now." Her bottom lip trembled. I reached into my desk drawer, slowly so she could see, and pulled out the little package of origami paper I kept there. My mom had taught me when I was young, during her chemo treatments, something to do with our hands when words were too hard. I folded a paper crane right there on the floor, my fingers remembering the creases, even though it had been 2 years since I'd made one. Blue paper, smooth and cool, the familiar sequence of folds like a prayer. The girl watched, her crying slowing to hiccups. I held out the finished crane. "You can keep this if you want, or I can show you how to make one." She reached out with small fingers and took it, holding it like it was made of glass. "Ella." The word was so quiet I almost missed it. "That's a beautiful name," I said. "I got in trouble at school. I didn't mean to. Emma said my mom left because I was bad and I pushed her and she fell and the teacher called my dad, but he's always busy and I didn't want to bother him, but they said I had to go home and—" Hey, I kept my voice soft as cotton. "It's okay. You're not in trouble here." "Everyone's always mad at me." My heart cracked clean down the middle. "I'm not mad at you, not even a little bit." She looked at me with those drowning eyes, and I saw something I recognized, the loneliness of a kid trying to be smaller, quieter, less of a problem, the exhaustion of carrying grief you don't have words for. "Your dad's just in his office," I said gently. "Should we—" "No," panic flashed across her face. "He'll be disappointed." "Ella, I really don't think—" The office door opened. Daniel Hale stepped out, phone still at his ear, and froze mid-sentence when he saw us. Me, crouched on the floor, his daughter, tears on her cheeks, holding a paper crane. "I'll call you back," he said into the phone. His voice was different, rougher, almost fragile. He ended the call. For 3 long seconds, nobody moved. Then Ella ran. Not away, to him. She crashed into his legs, racked her arms around his waist, and started sobbing, the loud, messy kind this time. He stood there stiff, his hands hovering over her back like he'd forgotten how to touch her, like he was afraid he'd break her. I started to stand, to give them privacy, but his eyes met mine over Ella's head. I'd never seen him look lost before. He lowered himself to one knee, slowly, and pulled Ella into his arms, her small body shaking. He closed his eyes, his jaw tight, and I saw what it cost him not to fall apart. "You're okay," he murmured into her hair. "You're okay, sweetheart. I'm here." I backed away quietly, returning to my desk, my hands trembling as I picked up a pen I didn't need. The rain kept falling, the office kept humming, but something fundamental had shifted, like the ground beneath my feet had been rearranged. 10 minutes later, Daniel appeared at my desk. Ella stood beside him, calmer now, still holding the paper crane. "Mrs. James," his voice was back to controlled, but something underneath it wasn't. "Thank you." "Of course." He looked at me for a moment longer than necessary, and I felt seen in a way that made my breath catch. "We'll be leaving early today." "Of course," I repeated, because my brain couldn't form other words. Ella looked up at me. "Bye, Ruby." "Bye, Ella." I watched them walk to the elevator, his hand resting on her shoulder, her fingers clutching that blue paper crane like a lifeline. The elevator doors closed. I exhaled. And I knew, with the kind of certainty that feels like falling, that I was in trouble. He didn't mention it the next day, or the day after that. Daniel Hale returned to his patterns, arriving at 6:45, coffee black, pacing during calls, eating alone. If anything, he seemed more distant, like that moment of vulnerability had embarrassed him, and now he was building the walls twice as high. I told myself I was relieved. I told myself it was better this way. Professional, clean, uncomplicated. I told myself a lot of lies that week. On Thursday, Margaret pulled me aside near the coffee station, her voice low. "Mr. Hale would like to speak with you. In his office. Now." My stomach dropped. I'm being let go. I saw too much. I overstepped. I knocked once on his door, heard the curt "come in," and entered with my spine straight and my face neutral. He was at his desk for once, papers spread before him, but he wasn't looking at them. He was looking at his hands, fingers laced together like he was praying or preparing for battle. "Sit," he said. I sat. The silence stretched. Outside, clouds hung low enough to touch the building. The air felt smaller than usual, the air thicker. "I need to offer you a different position," he said finally, "in addition to your current responsibilities." I blinked. "Sir?" "My daughter." He said it like the words hurt. "Ella. She has special needs right now. Emotional support. Supervision after school. Her grandmother was handling it, but she's moved to Phoenix for health reasons. The nanny quit last month. Ella refuses to talk to the replacement." He wasn't looking at me. His jaw was tight, his shoulders rigid. "She talked to you," he continued, each word precise and controlled. "For the first time in 6 months, she spoke to someone who wasn't court-ordered or blood-related. She asked about you yesterday, asked if you'd be here today." My heart stuttered. "I'm offering you additional compensation, significant compensation. 3 hours every weekday afternoon, pick her up from school at 3:15, stay with her until I get home around 7, sometimes later. You'd work from my home. Ella's homework, her meals, her—" His voice cracked, just slightly. "Her care. Mr. Hale, it's temporary," he cut in, still not meeting my eyes, "just until I find someone permanent, a professional, someone qualified." "Someone who isn't me," I translated. "Someone who won't see you break." I should have said no. I should have recognized this for what it was, a line being crossed, a boundary dissolving, the beginning of something I couldn't control. "Okay," I heard myself say. His eyes finally met mine, and I saw the relief there before he could hide it. "Good. Margaret has the address. You'll start Monday. Mr. Hale," I swallowed, "does Ella know about this arrangement? She knows I'm trying to find someone to stay with her after school. But does she know it might be me?" He hesitated, and in that pause I heard everything he wasn't saying. "I'm terrified she'll get attached. I'm terrified you'll leave. I'm terrified I'm failing her, and this is just another mistake." "No," he said quietly. "I didn't want to disappoint her if you said no." The vulnerability in that admission made my chest ache. "I won't disappoint her," I said. Something flickered in his eyes, gratitude maybe, or fear. "See that you don't." It should have sounded like a threat. Instead, it sounded like a plea. I took the bus to his house that first Monday, the address programmed into my phone. The commute took me from downtown into Madison Park, where the houses got bigger and the streets got quieter, and everything smelled like money and lake water. His house was stunning, modern but warm, glass and wood and clean lines, a garden out front with roses that someone cared for meticulously. The kind of house that should feel happy, but somehow didn't. Daniel answered the door in jeans and a gray sweater, no tie, his hair slightly less perfect than at the office. He looked younger, more human. "Miss James." "Ruby's fine," I said, "when we're here." He nodded once, stepping aside. "Ella's in her room, upstairs, second door on the right. She knows you're coming." The house was beautiful inside, high ceilings, art on the walls, furniture that looked expensive but unused. Everything was clean, too clean, like nobody really lived here, just passed through. "Kitchen's stocked," Daniel said, his voice stiff. "She's not allergic to anything. No tree nuts, but that's precautionary. She doesn't like loud noises or surprises. She needs reminders about homework. If there's any problem at all, you call me immediately." "Okay." "I mean it. Medical emergency, emotional crisis, anything. Mr. Hale, I touched his arm without thinking, then pulled back immediately. He looked at my hand like it had burned him. I have a meeting. I'll be back by 7. He grabbed his keys, his briefcase, moving toward the door like he couldn't get out fast enough. Then he stopped, his back to me. Thank you for doing this. You don't have to keep thanking me. Yes, he said quietly. I do. Then he was gone, and I was standing alone in a house that was too big and too quiet and holding the weight of something I didn't know how to name. I found Ella upstairs, sitting cross-legged on her bed, the blue paper crane on her nightstand. When she saw me, her whole face transformed. "Ruby, you're really here!" Dad said maybe, but I thought maybe he was lying because adults lie sometimes when they think it'll make you feel better, but you're actually here. I crouched down, smiling. I'm really here. Your dad asked if I could hang out with you after school for a while. Is that okay? She nodded so hard her braids bounced. Can we make more cranes? We can make a whole flock if you want. Her smile was sunshine breaking through clouds. I didn't know it yet, but I was already lost. I didn't know that 3 weeks from now I'd be making pancakes in this kitchen like I belonged here. I didn't know that Daniel Hale was watching us through the window that first day, his hand pressed against the glass, his expression something between hope and terror. I didn't know I was becoming essential, but I was starting to suspect. 3 weeks became a routine. I'd finish at the office at 2:45, take the bus to Madison Park, and arrive at Daniel's house by 3:10. Ella's school was a 5-minute walk, a private academy with iron gates and uniforms and parents who drove cars that cost more than most houses. I was always the only one walking. Ella would spot me from across the courtyard and run, her backpack bouncing, her face bright in a way that made my chest hurt because I knew how rare it was. We'd walk home together, her small hands sometimes finding mine, her chatter filling the afternoon air. "Ruby, did you know octopuses have 3 hearts?" "Ruby, Emma apologized today. We're friends again." "Ruby, do you think stars get lonely?" I learned she was brilliant, reading 3 grades above her level, obsessed with space and origami and the way light bends through water. I learned she had nightmares about her mother that she wouldn't talk about. I learned she counted things when she was anxious, tiles, birds, breaths. I learned she was desperately, achingly lonely. We'd do homework at the kitchen table, her pencil scratching across pages while I made snacks, apple slices with peanut butter, cheese, and crackers, sometimes cookies if she finished her math. We'd fold origami animals and line them up on the windowsill like a paper zoo. We'd read books curled up on the couch, her head against my shoulder, her breathing evening out. Daniel usually came home around 7. He'd walk in, set down his briefcase with the same careful precision he did everything, and pause in the doorway like he didn't quite believe what he was seeing. His daughter happy, his house warm, someone who stayed. "How was she?" he'd ask, his voice formal. "Good. We finished homework, had dinner. She's ready for bed." Ella would run to him then, wrapping her arms around his waist, and I'd see him soften in increments, the way his shoulders dropped, his hands settling on her hair, his eyes closing just briefly like he was memorizing the moment. "Go brush your teeth," he'd tell her. "I'll be up in a minute." She'd hug me goodbye and I'd leave, catching the bus home to my small apartment that felt colder every time I returned. But the routine was breaking down. It started small. A Thursday when Daniel came home at 5:30 instead of 7, loosening his tie as he walked in. "Meeting got canceled," he said, almost apologetic. Ella was on the floor teaching me some complicated pattern for a swan, her tongue between her teeth in concentration. "Stay for dinner, please." It wasn't a command. It was a question that sounded like it cost him something to ask. I should have said no. "Okay," I said instead. He cooked, which surprised me, chicken and vegetables stir-fried with an efficiency that suggested he did this often when no one was watching. We ate at the table, Ella between us, chattering about her day. Daniel was quiet, but his eyes kept landing on me across the table, a question in them I couldn't read. After dinner, Ella wanted to show me something in her room. Daniel followed, leaning against the doorframe while she pulled out a shoebox from under her bed. Inside were photographs. "That's Mommy," Ella said softly, holding up a picture of a woman with dark hair and a bright smile, holding a tiny baby. "I don't remember her much, just her perfume. It smelt like flowers." My throat closed. Daniel's jaw tightened, but he didn't leave, didn't stop her. "She got sick when I was 5. Her heart didn't work right. Dad says it wasn't my fault, but sometimes I think maybe if I'd been better—" "Ella," Daniel's voice cut through gently but firmly, "it wasn't your fault. It was never your fault." She looked at him with those huge gray eyes. "You always look so sad when I talk about her." "Because I miss her," he said, and the honesty in it made my breath catch. "Not because of you, never because of you." Ella nodded slowly, then looked at me. "Do you have a mom?" "I did," I said quietly. "She died 2 years ago. Cancer." "Does it stop hurting?" I glanced at Daniel. He was watching me with an intensity that my skin prickled. "No," I said honestly, "but it changes. The hurt becomes part of you instead of all of you, and you learn to carry it." Ella considered this, then carefully put the photos back. "I'm glad you're here, Ruby." "Me too, sweetheart." After I tucked her in, when did that become part of the routine? I found Daniel in the kitchen, washing dishes by hand even though there was a dishwasher. "You don't have to do that," I said. "Helps me think." He didn't look up, his hands in soapy water, his sleeves rolled to his elbows. I could see a scar on his left forearm, pale and long. I picked up a towel and started drying without asking permission. We worked in silence for a while, the only sound water running and dishes clinking. "She's different with you," he said finally. "Lighter. She's a wonderful kid." "She is." He handed me a plate, his fingers brushing mine. Neither of us moved for a second too long. "Daniel," he said quietly, "when we're here, just Daniel." I dried the plate carefully, my heart hammering. Daniel. His name felt dangerous in my mouth. "I've failed her," he said so quietly I almost missed it. "For 3 years I've been failing her, working too much, hiding too much, being too—" He stopped, his hands stilling in the water. "Too broken to be what she needs." "You're not broken." He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You don't know me. I know you come home every night, even when you're exhausted. You know you cook her dinner and read to her, and you're trying so hard it's killing you. That's not failure, that's love." He looked at me then, really looked at me, and something in his expression made the kitchen feel smaller. "You see too much," he said. "Maybe you don't let enough people see." The moment stretched, fragile and charged. Then he cleared his throat, stepped back, and the wall came back up. "It's late. I'll drive you home." "The bus is fine." "I'm driving you home, Ruby." We didn't talk during the drive, but I felt his presence beside me like heat, like gravity. When he pulled up outside my building, taking in the cracked sidewalk, the flickering streetlight, something tightened in his expression. "This neighborhood is what I can afford," I said more sharply than I intended. "I didn't mean—" "Good night, Daniel." I got out before I could do something stupid like cry or apologize or ask him why he looked at me like I was both the answer and the problem. I watched his car disappear into the night. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Thank you for staying, D." I saved his number. I didn't let myself think about what that meant. The first time Daniel stayed home with us, it was because of Ella's school conference. He rearranged 3 meetings, canceled a call with investors, and showed up at 4:30 looking uncomfortable in his own house. "Don't change anything," he said, standing awkwardly in the kitchen doorway. "Just pretend I'm not here." Impossible. I felt him watching as Ella and I made dinner together, her standing on a step stool, carefully measuring flour for pancakes because she decided breakfast for dinner was the best thing ever. I felt his eyes on my hands as I guided hers, on my face when I laughed at her jokes, on the space between us when Ella hugged me and said, "Ruby, you're my favorite person." I shouldn't have glowed at that. I definitely shouldn't have glanced at Daniel and seen something hungry and hurt in his expression. After dinner, Ella wanted to build a blanket fort in the living room. Daniel surprised us both by helping, his tall frame awkward as he draped sheets over furniture, his rare almost smile appearing when Ella squealed with delight. We ended up inside the fort, all 3 of us, reading by flashlight. Ella between us, Daniel's shoulder inches from mine in the small space. I could smell his cologne, something cedar and clean, and feel the heat of him in the enclosed space. "Ruby," Ella said sleepily, her head on my lap, "tell the story about your mom again." I stiffened. I'd told her a few stories, safe ones, about Mom's terrible singing and her love of birds, but I felt Daniel's attention sharpen beside me. "Which story?" I asked carefully. "The one about how she knew things." I stroked Ella's hair, my throat tight. "My mom used to say she could tell when something important was going to happen. She'd get this feeling like the air changed. The day she met my dad, she said she knew. The day I was born, she said she knew I'd be stubborn and kind." "Did she know she was going to die?" Ella asked with the brutal honesty of children. "Ella," Daniel started, but I shook my head slightly. "Yeah," I said softly. "She knew. She told me 3 months before, sitting in her hospital room. She said, 'Ruby, I know I'm not going to beat this, but I need you to know something. You are not here to save people. You're here to love them. There's a difference.'" I hadn't told anyone that before. "What's the difference?" Ella whispered. "Saving people means you think they're broken. Loving them means you see them whole, even when they hurt." Silence filled the fort. Then Daniel's hand found mine in the darkness, his fingers threading through mine, squeezing once. He didn't let go. Later, after Ella was asleep, we sat on the back porch. Rain misted down, soft and steady, and the city glowed in the distance like scattered stars. Daniel handed me a glass of wine. I didn't usually drink, but I took it, grateful for something to do with my hands now that his weren't holding them. "You've never talked about your parents at work." "You never asked." "I'm asking now." I sipped the wine, too expensive for my palate, complex and deep. "Mom died first, breast cancer. She fought it for 3 years. Dad," my voice cracked, "Dad just gave up after. Stopped eating right, stopped caring. His heart attack was technically natural causes, but I think he died of missing her." "I understand that." I looked at him, his staring at the rain, his jaw tight. "Ella's mother, Natalie, she was everything I wasn't. Warm, easy with people. She made me laugh, which no one had done in years. We met when I was 30, married 6 months later. Ella came a year after that, and I thought—" He stopped, his hands clenching around his glass. "I thought I'd figured it out, how to be happy, how to be human." "What happened?" "Peripartum cardiomyopathy. Her heart was damaged during pregnancy. We didn't know until it was too late. She collapsed holding Ella when Ella was 5, died 3 days later in the ICU. His voice was flat, reciting facts like a report. "Ella was in the room when it happened. She saw her mother fall." My chest constricted. "Daniel." He threw himself into work after, told myself Ella needed stability, structure, a father who could provide. I hired nannies, sent her to the best school, did everything right. He laughed bitterly. But I forgot how to talk to her, how to be present. I became exactly what everyone says I am, a robot in an expensive suit. You're not a robot. You don't know what I've done, how many times I've chosen a meeting over her, how many nights she's gone to bed while I was still at the office, how many times I've seen her hurting and not known how to fix it. You're here now because you showed me what I was missing. He finally looked at me and his eyes were devastated. In 3 weeks, you've given her more warmth, more attention, more love than I've managed in 3 years. Do you know how that feels, to know your daughter lights up for a stranger in ways she never does for you? I'm not a stranger anymore, and she loves you, Daniel. She counts the minutes until you come home. She counts because she has anxiety. She counts because she wants to see you. He shook his head, but I saw him waver. Why do you do this? Work 2 jobs, live in that neighborhood, take care of a kid who isn't yours? You could do anything. You're smart, capable. You could... Could what? Leave? I'm good at that. The words came out sharper than I meant. Everyone leaves, Daniel. My parents didn't choose to, but they did. Every temp job ends. Every place I've lived has been temporary. I've spent 2 years being useful and disposable, and I'm good at it because it doesn't hurt as much when it ends if you never let yourself believe it could last. His eyes widened slightly. Ruby, but Ella makes me want to stay, I whispered. She makes me want to believe I'm not just temporary, and that terrifies me. The rain fell heavier. The distance between us felt like miles and inches at all once. You're not temporary to her, Daniel said, his voice rough. You're not temporary to... He stopped, swallowed, looked away. To... I prompted, my heart hammering. To us, he said finally. You're not temporary to us. The air changed just like my mother always said it did before something important. I should have pulled back. Instead, I leaned closer. Daniel. His phone buzzed, loud, insistent. He closed his eyes, jaw tight, and checked it. Emergency at the office. Server breach. I have to go. Now? Now. He stood, already shifting back into CEO mode, shoulders straightening, expression hardening. There's a guest room upstairs if you want to stay. Ella would love to wake up and find you here. I'll stay, I heard myself say. He nodded, started to leave, then turned back. Ruby, what your mother said about not being here to save people? His eyes were intense, searching. You saved us anyway. Then he was gone, and I was alone on the porch with rain and wine and the feeling that something irreversible had just shifted between us. I went inside, checked on Ella, still sleeping, her hand clutching that first blue crane, and found the guest room. I didn't sleep. I lay there thinking about Daniel's hand in mine, his voice breaking, the way he'd almost said something that would have changed everything. I thought about my mother's words. You're not here to save people, you're here to love them. I thought about how I was falling in love with a man who'd hired me to care for his daughter. I thought about how spectacularly this was all going to hurt when it ended, because it would end. It always did. Didn't it? Something changed after that night. Daniel started coming home earlier. Not every day. His work was still demanding, still relentless, but twice a week became 3 times, then 4. He'd walk in at 6 instead of 7, loosening his tie, and ask, "What are we doing today?" We. Not what is Ruby doing with Ella, but we, like he was part of it now, like he wanted to be. The first time he stayed for our origami session, Ella practically vibrated with excitement. "Dad, you have to try. Ruby's teaching me dragons." "I don't think my hands work that way," he said, but he sat down anyway, looking absurdly large in one of the kitchen chairs, his expensive suit jacket draped over the back. I showed him the folds, my fingers guiding his through the sequence. His hands were warm, his movements careful but clumsy. When he messed up the tail, Ella giggled, and for a moment his face did something incredible. It softened completely, his eyes crinkling at the corners. He was beautiful when he let himself be imperfect. "It's terrible," he said, holding up his lopsided dragon. "It's perfect," Ella declared, taking it reverently. "I'm keeping it forever." I watched him watch her and saw something healing in his expression. Friday nights became movie nights. It started accidentally. Rain canceled Ella's soccer practice, and she begged to watch Coco, and Daniel said yes instead of redirecting her to homework. We made popcorn. Ella chose the middle of the couch, which meant Daniel and I flanked her, close enough that I could feel the warmth of his arm near mine, smell his cologne mixed with butter and salt. Halfway through, Ella fell asleep, her head on my shoulder. "We should take her to bed," Daniel whispered. "Let her rest. She's comfortable." We kept watching. On screen, a boy sang to his dying great-grandmother, and I felt my throat close up. I'd watched this movie with my mother during her last month, both of us crying, both of us pretending we weren't. A tear slid down my cheek before I could stop it. Daniel noticed. Of course he noticed. He didn't say anything, just reached over Ella's sleeping form and took my hand, his thumb tracing circles on my palm. We stayed like that until the credits rolled, his hand in mine, Ella between us, the house quiet except for her soft breathing. "Thank you," I whispered. "For what?" "For seeing me." His fingers tightened around mine. "I see you, Ruby. I see you every day." The following Tuesday, I arrived to find the kitchen covered in flour. Daniel stood at the counter in jeans and a t-shirt I'd never seen him wear, his hair disheveled, Ella beside him giggling at something on her tablet. "We're making cookies," he announced. "Ella found a recipe. He gestured helplessly at the mess, "improvising." "You're baking?" "Badly, yes." I couldn't help it. I laughed, real, genuine laughter that felt like sunshine after rain. His expression shifted, something unguarded crossing his face. "I like that sound." "What sound?" "You, laughing." He said it simply, like it was just a fact. "You don't do it enough." My cheeks flushed. "Neither do you." "I'm working on it." We baked together, the three of us bumping into each other in the too small space, flour dusting everything, Ella narrating each step with scientific precision. Daniel followed instructions with the same intensity he probably brought to board meetings, measuring everything exactly. "You can't overthink cookies," I told him, stealing the measuring cup. "Sometimes you just have to feel it." "I don't operate on feeling." "Maybe you should try." Our eyes met. The kitchen felt warmer. "Dad, you're staring at Ruby again," Ella said without looking up from her tablet. Daniel cleared his throat, ears reddening. "I'm reading the recipe." "The recipe is on the tablet I'm holding." "Ella, it's okay," she said matter-of-factly. "Ruby's pretty. It makes sense." I busied myself with the cookie dough, my face burning. When the cookies came out, slightly burnt on the bottom, perfectly imperfect, we ate them warm at the table, milk in our glasses, sugar on our fingers. "Best cookies ever," Ella declared. "They're objectively mediocre." "They're made with love," she corrected. "That makes them perfect." I glanced at Daniel. He was already looking at me, something vulnerable in his expression. Love, I thought. We're building something that looks an awful lot like love. That weekend, Daniel did something that shocked both Ella and me. "We're going out," he announced Saturday morning. "All of us. No work, no responsibilities, just," he hesitated, "fun." "What's the occasion?" I asked carefully. "Do we need one?" We went to the aquarium. Daniel bought the tickets, waving off my attempt to pay for mine. Ella dragged us from exhibit to exhibit, pressing her face against glass, reading every plaque aloud. Daniel listened to her with complete attention, asking questions, carrying her when she got tired. I took a photo of them in front of the jellyfish tank, Ella on his shoulders, both of them smiling, bioluminescent creatures glowing behind them. "Send that to me," when he caught me looking at it. "It's a good one." "It's evidence," he said quietly. That I'm trying. That's more than trying. You're succeeding. He looked at me then with such raw gratitude it made my chest ache. In the dim blue light of the shark tunnel, tourists flowing around us, Ella between us holding both our hands, Daniel leaned close. "I don't want this to end," he said softly. "When your 3 months are up, I don't—" "Daniel, let me finish, please." He swallowed hard. "I know this isn't what we agreed to. I know you were supposed to be temporary, but you've become—" He stopped, his jaw working. "Essential to both of us." My heart hammered. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying don't leave. I'm saying we need you. I'm saying—" "Dad, Ruby, the octopus has babies." Ella pulled us forward, the moment shattering, but Daniel's hand found mine as we walked, his fingers threading through mine like they belonged there, like maybe they did. That night, after I'd tucked Ella in and was gathering my things to leave, Daniel stopped me at the door. "Stay," he said. "Have dinner with me after she's asleep, please." I should have said no. I should have recognized we were crossing lines that couldn't be uncrossed. "Okay," I whispered. He cooked pasta while I made salad, and we moved around each other in the kitchen like a dance we'd been practicing for weeks. We ate by candlelight, not because it was romantic, he said, but because Ella had insisted on candles for ambiance, and he'd humored her. But it felt romantic. It felt like everything I'd ever wanted and been too afraid to ask for. "Tell me something true," Daniel said suddenly, "something you've never told anyone." I set down my fork, my heart racing. "I'm terrified that everyone I love will leave, so I try not to love anyone." "How's that working out?" I met his eyes. "Poorly." He reached across the table, his hand open, waiting. I took it. "I'm terrified," he said quietly, "terrified of failing, terrified of hurting people, terrified that I'm too damaged to be what anyone needs." His thumb traced patterns on my palm. "But with you, I want to try. I want to be brave enough to—" His thumb rang. We both stared at it like it was a bomb. He didn't answer, just silenced it, his eyes never leaving mine. "What were you going to say?" I whispered. "That I'm falling for you," he said simply. "That you've made me remember what it feels like to be alive. That every time you leave, this house feels empty. That I—" The phone rang again. He closed his eyes, jaw tight. "Answer it," I said softly. "It might be important." It was. His ex-in-laws. "Emergency," they said. "We need to talk about Ella." The warmth drained from the room. Daniel's expression shuddered, the CEO returning. "I have to take this." "I know." I gathered my things, but before he left, he caught my wrist. "Ruby, what I said, I meant it." "I know," I whispered. "I feel it too." His fingers searched mine, desperate, hopeful. Then his phone rang a third time, and the spell broke. I left with my heart full and breaking all at once, because I knew that happiness like this never lasted. Not for girls like me. The call from Daniel came at 11 p.m. on a Wednesday. I was in bed, trying not to think about the way he'd looked at me that morning when dropping Ella at school, like I was both his salvation and his doom. "Ruby." His voice was shattered glass. "I need you to come to the house, now, please." I was out the door in minutes, my heart hammering, worst-case scenarios flooding my mind. Ella's hurt, Ella's sick, Ella's— When I arrived, every light in the house was on. Daniel opened the door looking destroyed, hair disheveled, tie gone, shirt half untucked. His eyes were wild. "What happened? Is Ella—" "She's fine, asleep. She doesn't know yet." He stepped back, letting me in. "My ex-in-laws, Natalie's parents, they're filing for custody." The floor dropped out from under me. "They can't—" "They can. They're claiming I'm an unfit father, that I work too much, that Ella's emotionally neglected, that I've—" His voice cracked. "That I've been inappropriate by bringing a young woman into Ella's life without proper vetting. They're saying you're—" He couldn't finish. Ice flooded my veins. Saying I'm what? That you're a distraction, that I'm more focused on— He looked at me with devastation in his eyes. On you than on Ella's welfare. They're using our relationship against me. We don't have a relationship. Don't we? He laughed bitterly. Ruby, I've been falling in love with you for weeks. Everyone can see it. My staff, my lawyers, apparently Natalie's parents. Everyone except maybe you. The confession should have felt like victory. Instead, it felt like a death sentence. This is my fault, I whispered. No. Yes, my voice rose. I knew this was a bad idea. I knew getting close to you, to Ella, would complicate things. I should have maintained boundaries. I should have just done my job and left. Is that what this has been to you? A job? What else could it be? I shot back, panic making me cruel. You're my boss, Daniel. You hired me. This whole thing, dinners, movie nights, holding hands in aquarium tunnels, it's been inappropriate from the start. He flinched like I'd slapped him. Ruby, they're right, I said, the words tasting like poison. You've been distracted by me, and now Ella's going to pay for it. Don't do this. Do what? Tell the truth? I was shaking now, my voice breaking. I'm nobody, Daniel. I'm a temp worker living in a shitty apartment, working 2 jobs just to survive. You're a billionaire CEO. Your daughter needs stability, not whatever this is. This is love, he said desperately. This is family. This is a fantasy. The words ripped out of me, and I've been stupid enough to believe it. But Ella is real, Daniel. Her safety is real, and if being in her life puts her at risk, then Don't. His voice was raw. Don't you dare walk away. I have to. If you walk out that door, Ella's going to wake up tomorrow and the person she trusts most will be gone, just like her mother, just like everyone she's ever loved. I stopped, my hand on the doorknob. You think I don't know that? I turned back, tears streaming. You think I don't know what this will do to her? But at least she'll still have you. At least she won't be taken away because her father was too busy falling in love with the help to notice he was losing her. You're not the help. Yes, I am. My voice cracked. That's all I've ever been. That's all I'll ever be. And the sooner you accept that, the sooner you can fix this mess and keep your daughter safe. The silence that followed was deafening. Daniel looked at me like I'd killed something precious between us. Maybe I had. Get out, he said quietly. Daniel! Get out. His voice was thunder. You want to leave? Fine, leave. But don't pretend you're doing this for Ella. Don't pretend you're being noble. You're doing this because you're terrified. Terrified of being chosen. Terrified of mattering. Terrified that someone might actually love you and you'd have to believe you're worth it. Every word hit like a bullet. You're running, he continued, his voice deadly calm now, just like you've run from everything that's ever mattered, because it's easier to be temporary, easier to be replaceable, easier to walk away before someone can prove you're not enough. Fuck you, I whispered. No, fuck you, Ruby. Fuck you for making Ella love you. Fuck you for making me believe we could be a family. And fuck you for proving everyone right that you were just passing through. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, could only feel the pain radiating through my chest like a supernova. I'll submit my resignation tomorrow, I managed. Already accepted. I stumbled out into the night, my vision swimming, my chest cracking open. I made it halfway down the block before I collapsed against a tree and sobbed, deep, ugly, body-shaking sobs that felt like they were tearing me apart from the inside. I'd done the right thing. I'd protected Ella. I'd protected Daniel. So why did it feel like I'd just destroyed the only thing that ever mattered? Back in the house, Daniel stood frozen in the doorway, watching Ruby's silhouette disappear into the darkness. Then he heard it. Small steps on the stairs. Daddy? He turned to see Ella standing there in her pajamas, her face streaked with tears, that blue paper crane clutched in her hand. "Is Ruby coming back?" He wanted to lie, wanted to tell her yes, that everything would be fine, that love didn't shatter like glass and leave you bleeding. But he was so tired of lying. "I don't know, sweetheart," he whispered. Ella ran to him, wrapped her arms around his waist, and started crying, the loud, messy, heartbroken kind. Daniel sank to the floor, pulled his daughter into his lap, and let himself break with her. Outside, rain began to fall, and 3 miles away, in a studio apartment with water stains on the ceiling, Ruby James packed her things and tried to remember why survival was supposed to be enough. I didn't go back to the office. I sent my resignation via email at 3 a.m., professional and concise. No emotion, no explanation. Margaret responded within an hour, brief, cold, confirming receipt. No word from Daniel. I told myself that's what I wanted. I told myself a lot of lies that week. My phone rang constantly the first 2 days, Daniel's number lighting up the screen again and again. I didn't answer. Couldn't. Each time it rang felt like a knife twisting deeper. On day 3, the call stopped. That hurt worse. I picked up extra shifts at my second job, a coffee shop near Pike Place Market where tourists tipped well and nobody asked questions about why my eyes were constantly red. I folded origami cranes during my breaks, my hands moving through familiar patterns while my mind stayed blank. Blue paper, white paper, yellow, each fold precise, each crane perfect, each one a reminder of what I'd lost. On Thursday, a regular customer, an elderly woman named Dorothy who always ordered Earl Grey, sat at my station. "You look heartbroken," she said simply. I tried to smile. "Just tired." Don't lie to an old woman. I've seen that look before, worn it myself. She stirred her tea slowly. "Let me guess. You walked away from something good because you were scared." My hand stilled on the crane I was folding. "It's what we do," Dorothy continued, "especially those of us who've lost people. We convince ourselves leaving first hurts less than being left." She looked at me with kind, knowing eyes. "Does it?" "No," I whispered. "Then why are you still gone?" I went home that night to find a package outside my door. No return address, no note. Inside was a shoebox. My hand shook as I opened it. Origami. Dozens of pieces. Cranes, dragons, butterflies, stars. Some were perfect. Most were lopsided, clumsy, clearly made by beginner hands. At the bottom was a note in a child's handwriting. "Ruby, I made these for you. Dad helped, but he's still not very good. We miss you. I miss you. Did I do something wrong? Dad says no, but I think maybe I did because you left, and everyone leaves when I do something wrong. Please come back. I promise I'll be better. Love, Ella." P.S. Dad says I can't promise to be better because I'm already perfect, but I don't think I am. I think you left because I wasn't enough. The paper blurred through my tears. I found my phone, pulled up Daniel's number, my thumb hovering over the call button. Then I saw the second note tucked beneath the first, adult handwriting, precise but shaking. "Ruby, I shouldn't send this. My lawyers would kill me, but Ella insisted, and I can't deny her anything right now. You were wrong about what you said. You're not nobody, you're not replaceable, you're not just passing through. You're the woman who taught my daughter to smile again. You're the woman who reminded me what it feels like to be human. You're the woman I fell in love with somewhere between origami cranes and burnt cookies and movie nights on the couch. I don't blame you for leaving. I understand fear. I've lived in it for 3 years. But I need you to understand something. You didn't put Ella at risk. You saved her. You saved both of us." The custody battle is brutal. My in-laws are relentless, but we're fighting. Ella and I were fighting, and we're going to win because I finally understand what Natalie tried to tell me before she died, that love isn't a weakness, it's the only strength that matters. I love you, Ruby James, whether you come back or not, whether you believe it or not, I love you. I just thought you should know. Daniel. I read it 3 times. Then I called my mother's number, disconnected 2 years ago, but sometimes I still dialed it when I needed her voice. The robotic message played. This number is no longer in service. Mom, I whispered into the void. Silence answered. But I remembered her words. You're not here to save people. You're here to love them. I remembered Dorothy's question. Why are you still gone? I remembered Ella's tear-stained face, asking, is Ruby coming back? I remembered Daniel's voice breaking. You're running because it's easier than believing you're worth it. He was right. I was running. I'd been running since my parents died, convinced that if I never stopped long enough to build a home, I'd never have to experience losing one again. But I'd already lost it. I'd lost it the moment I walked out Daniel's door. The question wasn't whether I could survive losing them. The question was whether I was brave enough to fight for them anyway. Friday morning, I showed up at Hale Industries at 6:45 a.m. Security recognized me, their expressions carefully neutral. The elevator ride to the 44th floor felt eternal. Margaret was at her desk, her expression unreadable. Miss James? I need to see him. He's not. Please, my voice cracked. Please, Margaret. Something softened in her eyes. Conference room B. He's been there all night preparing for the custody hearing. It's today, starts at 10. My heart stopped. Today? He didn't tell you? We haven't talked. Margaret studied me for a long moment. Then she stood, walked me to the conference room, and opened the door. Daniel sat alone at a massive table covered in documents, his suit jacket discarded, his sleeves rolled up, his hair a mess. He looked up, and the expression that crossed his face was pure devastation. Daniel. Margaret closed the door behind me. We stared at each other across 10 feet and 1,000 unspoken words. I'm sorry for what I said, for leaving, for... Don't. His voice was rough. Don't apologize for protecting yourself. I wasn't protecting myself. I was destroying us. I moved closer, my legs shaking. I was right about all of it. I ran because I was scared, because I didn't believe I deserved to be chosen. Daniel, let me finish. I was crying now, but I didn't care. I've spent 2 years being temporary because temporary doesn't hurt when it ends. But this hurt anyway. It hurt because I love you. I love Ella. I loved the life we were building, and I was so terrified of losing it that I burned it down myself. Daniel stood slowly, his eyes never leaving mine. I don't know if I can help with the custody case. I don't know if me being there makes things worse. But I'm here. I'm here because I choose you. I choose Ella. I choose to be brave enough to believe I'm worth fighting for. The silence stretched. Then Daniel crossed the distance between us in 3 strides, cupped my face in his hands, and kissed me. It wasn't gentle. It was desperate, furious, full of every word we hadn't said and every moment we'd wasted. His hands tangled in my hair, my fingers clutched his shirt, and for the first time in a week, I could breathe. When we finally broke apart, he pressed his forehead to mine. I love you. God, Ruby, I love you. I love you too. The hearing, I know, we'll figure it out. They're going to destroy us, me. Then we'll be destroyed together. I pulled back to look at him. But Daniel, we're not going to lose. We're going to fight, and we're going to win. His eyes searched mine, and I saw hope there, fragile, terrified, but real. Okay, he breathed. Okay. He kissed me again, softer this time, full of promise. Behind us, the door opened. Margaret cleared her throat. "Your lawyer's here, Mr. Hale, and—" She paused, a small smile playing at her lips. "Miss Ella is on the phone. She said she had a feeling something good was happening and wanted to say she loves you both." Daniel's hand found mine, our fingers threading together. "Tell her we love her too, and that we're coming home soon." Home. Not his house. Home. For the first time in 2 years, I let myself believe in that word. The custody hearing was brutal. Natalie's parents, silver-haired, expensive lawyers flanking them, painted Daniel as a cold, absent father who prioritized business over his daughter. They brought up every late night, every missed recital, every nanny who'd quit. They brought up me. "Mr. Hale," their lawyer said, his voice dripping with disdain, "isn't it true that you hired a young woman with no child care qualifications to supervise her daughter, a woman you then began an inappropriate relationship with?" Daniel's lawyer objected, but the damage was done. I sat in the back of the courtroom, my hands clenched in my lap, watching Daniel's jaw tighten. Then something unexpected happened. "I'd like to address that," Daniel said, his voice calm but firm. His lawyer shot him a warning look. He ignored it. "Yes, I hired Ruby James as a temporary assistant, and yes, I asked her to help with Ella after school, but there was nothing inappropriate about it." He looked directly at Natalie's parents. "Ruby saved my daughter. Ella was withdrawn, anxious, barely speaking. In 3 weeks, Ruby did what I couldn't do in 3 years. She made Ella feel safe enough to open up." "Because you failed as a father," Natalie's mother said, her voice shaking. "Yes," Daniel said simply, "I did fail. For 3 years, I was so terrified of losing Ella the way I lost Natalie that I built walls around both of us. I thought control and distance would protect her. I was wrong." The courtroom went silent. "Ruby didn't distract me from being a father. She taught me how to be one again. She showed me that love isn't weakness, it's strength, that being present matters more than being perfect, that Ella needed me to be human, not a provider." He turned to the judge. "I'm not asking you to ignore my mistakes. I made them, too many. But I'm asking you to see what's changed. Ella is thriving. She's happy. She's loved. And if you take her from the life she has now because I dared to let someone in, you're punishing her for my growth." Natalie's father stood. "Your Honor, this is exactly what we're talking about. Mr. Hale's judgment is clouded by love," Daniel interrupted. "My judgment is clouded by love, and I won't apologize for that anymore." The judge called a recess. Outside the courtroom, Daniel's lawyer pulled him aside, furious. "That was not the strategy we discussed." "I don't care." "Daniel, I'm done hiding. I'm done pretending I don't need people. If we lose, we lose, but at least Ella will know I fought for her. For us." He found me in the hallway, pulled me into his arms, and held on like I was the only solid thing in a tilting world. "Whatever happens," he whispered into my hair, "thank you for coming back." "Always," I whispered back. The judge's decision came 3 hours later. "After reviewing the evidence and hearing testimony," she said, her voice measured, "I find that while Mr. Hale has had shortcomings as a parent, he has demonstrated significant growth and commitment to addressing those shortcomings. More importantly, the child in question, Ella Hale, has shown marked improvement in emotional well-being under her current living arrangement." Natalie's parents gripped each other's hands. "I am denying the petition for custody transfer. However," she looked directly at Daniel, "I am ordering family therapy, regular check-ins with a court-appointed child psychologist, and a reevaluation in 6 months. Mr. Hale, you have been given a second chance. Don't waste it." "I won't, Your Honor." The gavel fell. Daniel's lawyer clapped him on the back, Natalie's parents looked devastated but resigned, and Daniel turned to me, his eyes bright with unshed tears, and smiled. Really, truly smiled. We picked Ella up from school together. She was waiting in the courtyard, her backpack at her feet, her eyes scanning the crowd. When she saw us, both of us, her face transformed. "Ruby!" She ran. I crouched down and caught her, wrapping my arms around her small body as she crashed into me, and felt something settle in my chest, something that felt like home. "You came back," she sobbed into my shoulder. "You came back." "I'm sorry I left, sweetheart. I'm so sorry." "It's okay. Dad said you were scared. I get scared too." Daniel knelt beside us, his hand on Ella's back, his eyes meeting mine over her head. "Are you staying? Like really staying? Not just for a job?" I glanced at Daniel. He nodded slightly, giving me permission to answer honestly. "Yeah," I said, tears streaming down my face. "I'm really staying, if that's okay with you." "It's perfect with me." She wiped her eyes, then looked between us. "Are you guys going to get married?" Daniel choked on air. "Ella," he started, "because Emma's parents are married and they fight a lot, but they love each other anyway, and I think that's how it's supposed to work. And you guys love each other. I can tell." "We do," I said softly, looking at Daniel. "We love each other very much. Then you should get married." She said it like it was the simplest thing in the world. Daniel laughed, a real, genuine laugh that sounded like freedom. "Maybe we should talk about this at home," he said, but his eyes were on me, full of promise. That night, after Ella was asleep, tucked in with her blue crane and a new dragon I'd made her, Daniel found me on the back porch. The rain had cleared, stars were visible for the first time in weeks, scattered across the sky like paper cranes. He sat beside me, our shoulders touching, his hand finding mine in the darkness. "She's right, you know," he quieted. "About us. Marriage, us, all of it." He turned to face me. "Ruby, I know it's fast. I know we have things to figure out, but I also know I don't want to waste any more time pretending I don't want forever with you." My breath caught. "I'm not asking you to marry me tonight," he continued, his thumb tracing circles on my palm, "but I'm asking you to build a life with us, move in, be part of this family. Let me love you the way you deserve to be loved." "Ruby," he said, "I know you're scared. I'm scared too, but I'm more scared of living without you." I looked at him, this man who'd been so closed off, so controlled, now offering me his whole heart, and I saw my future. Not temporary, not disposable, permanent. "Okay," I whispered. "Okay? Okay, I'll move in. Okay, I'll build a life with you. Okay, I'll let myself believe I'm worth it." He kissed me then, soft and deep and full of every promise we were making. When we pulled apart, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. "I said I wasn't asking tonight," he said, his voice shaking slightly, "but I also don't want to wait. Ruby James, will you—" "Yes." He blinked. "I didn't finish the question." "I don't need you to." "Yes." He laughed, opened the box, and slid the ring onto my finger. Simple, elegant, perfect. We sat there under the stars, his arm around me, my head on his shoulder, and let ourselves believe in happy endings. 6 months later, the wedding was small. Just close friends, Margaret, Daniel's lawyer who'd become a surprising ally, and Dorothy from the coffee shop who cried through the entire ceremony. Ella was my maid of honor, wearing a dress covered in paper cranes she sewn on herself. When Daniel and I exchanged vows, I looked out at our little chosen family and remembered my mother's words. "You're not here to save people, you're here to love them." I'd loved them, and in loving them, I'd saved myself. That night, in the house that was now officially home, the three of us made origami cranes together, hundreds of them in every color, strung from the ceiling like stars. "What do we do with all these?" Ella asked, surveying our work. "We keep them," Daniel said, pulling me close, "as a reminder." "Of what?" Ella asked. I looked at him, then at her, then at the paper cranes spinning slowly above us. That beautiful things can come from broken pieces, that love is worth fighting for, that sometimes the best families are the ones we choose. Ella nodded seriously, then grinned, and that Dad still can't fold dragons. We laughed, all three of us, and it sounded like home, like forever, like everything I'd been running from and searching for all along. Sometimes the people who save us are the ones we never expected. Sometimes love looks like origami cranes and burnt cookies and choosing to stay even when it's scary. Sometimes family isn't blood, it's the people who see you, broken pieces and all, and love you anyway. Thank you for letting me share Ruby, Daniel, and Ella's story with you. If their journey touched your heart, I'd love to hear which moment resonated most. Drop a comment below. Did you relate more to Ruby's fear of being temporary, Daniel's struggle to be vulnerable, or Ella's hope that people would stay? Your stories matter to me.